Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, we're going to be catching up with the 5th Doctor, Tegan and Nyssa, in the latest box set of adventures from Big Finish. This one is entitled In the Night, and it features 2 stories as written by Tim Foley and Sarah Grochala. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website in both physical CD and digital download formats, and can also be purchased as part of a bundle alongside other classic series Doctor Who releases. Now personally, I was in fact really looking forward to this box set release, as since Big Finish have moved to the box set format over the much loved main range, I feel like the 5th Doctor series has really excelled in its storytelling. Of course, we had the 40th celebrations last year. We are now moving into a more traditional series of 5th Doctor adventures based within the TV era, and you know what, I'm really enjoying it. It's a lovely comfort blanket and it's great for new listeners too, but also it's a nice series to simply put on and enjoy if you are a regular Big Finish listener. So let's take a look at how this box set is formatted. The first episode is a 4-parter as written by Tim Foley, and it is Pursuit of the Nightjar, and the final episode of the set is a 2-part story being Resistor as written by Sarah Grochala. Taking a look at the production team for this box set, the director is Ken Bentley, the music and sound design has been done by Howard Carter, and he's done an excellent job within this series, in particular for the Nightjar. I really love the music within that one. The producer is David Richardson, the script editor is John Dorney, and also a special shout out to Ryan Applin, who has done the cover art for this box set, because it looks bloody beautiful. It's really lovely, and it really sells both of the stories within this set. It's a lovely combination of concepts, and I actually went into this box set already in a good mood because of the artwork and because of the way that it sells the stories. It's something of which that really intrigued me as to what the stories were going to be about, so I think it's very much a case of don't judge a book by its cover, but in this case I think that the cover art does a very good job of judging the stories themselves and kind of setting the expectations quite high. Well then, Pursuit of the Nightjar as written by Tim Foley, and this one might just be one of the best Doctor Who releases within the entirety of the Big Finish catalogue. I've come to really enjoy the 5th Doctor adventures since the main range ended and the box set format began, and I think that this episode acts as a great comfort blanket. It takes me right back to 1980s Doctor Who, and it has lots of fun moments, whilst also heightening the stakes far beyond the televised adventures, allowing the Doctor and co to get themselves into many situations that would have looked frankly appalling if it was on screen. I dread to think what this episode would have looked like if it had the special effects techniques of 1980s Doctor Who, as I imagine it would have looked very Four to Doomsday, which wouldn't have been great, but yes, the imagination works wonders. So Captain Goban is at the helm of the Nightjar, delivering supplies to a colony planet called Ottoman, an act of which that will end a long-raging war. However, the vessel has long been pursued by Captain Enslow on a ship called the Nemesis. The 5th Doctor, Tegan and Nyssa land, and it takes a while for the Doctor to realise where they are, but when he does, he gets very excited indeed. Peter Davison is brilliant within this story. He's such a kind-hearted, determined Doctor, and he loves to do the right thing. He has a passion to venture across the universe, and I find his portrayal within this story so heartwarming. I think Tim Foley certainly is one of the big factors in making me appreciate the 5th Doctor a lot more than I did. As I've mentioned within previous reviews, to be honest, I don't really tend to go to the 5th Doctor that much. I don't really watch his TV stories, but I've really become to appreciate him more over the last few box sets. The team are placed into some rather difficult situations. I think that Davison brings those superbly to life within the audio drama format. Again, that warmth really comes across on audio. He reminds me almost of an academic who's been around for many years, but yet he has such a young face, which I think is a really interesting concept. Tegan and Nyssa are also great within this episode. This story sees them right at the coalface of the adventure, running around the Nightjar, dealing with disaster, the dangerous environment of space. I find them both really enjoyable to listen to. At this stage, both Sarah Sutton and Janet Fielding are so at home and comfortable with these roles, and I like how this series has shied away from Tegan constantly whining about getting home, as I believe that this episode is set rather far into their adventures after the loss of Adric. Yes, she does have a few moans here and there, but it's very light-hearted and fun, and I think that she just kind of does it because that's in her personality, but in reality she does actually quite enjoy travelling with the Doctor and Nyssa. They are now such a big part of her life, and there is a huge respect between them. And I think that is also very, very prominent within the actors themselves. It's clear that these people are very, very close in real life. Also, a massive shout out to the drone that features within this story, an AI called LV. Tegan becomes quite close friends with this AI within the story, and it's absolutely adorable. Their relationship really brought a smile to my face throughout listening to this one. Despite this episode having a 4-part runtime, its limited cast makes this story incredibly easy to follow. My initial plan was to listen to this episode gradually, but I was frankly hooked from episode 1. The visual description of the Nightjar, the musical accompaniments by Howard Carter, eased me into this narrative so very quickly. I felt really immersed within the plot, but also very engaged with each and every curveball. All I will say about the details of this story is that the Nightjar very nearly has reached the end of its journey, but history is at threat and Captain Goban is in a very sticky situation. Paul Thornley and Fenella Woolgar play Captain Goban and Enslow respectively, and again they are both captivating within the audio form. Due to this story having such a limited cast, I think an attention-grabbing performance is absolutely crucial to carry the plot forward, and I think they definitely achieve that. Paul Thornley embodies the role of Goban in such a calming, gentlemanly way. His interactions with the Doctor are so polite, whilst also spirited by this determination to fulfil his mission. We see slightly less of Enslow in the early half of this story, but again she embodies that prey coming for her victim in a really interesting way, as after all she's operating on the opposite side of this war. She is against Goban's mission, and yet the relationship that they have is an interesting one, because after all they're in the depths of space, there is no one else to talk to within this environment, so despite them being enemies, they do somewhat act quite civil about it, which I think that dynamic is really, really nice. She's not an outright villain. Both Enslow and Goban are complex characters with multiple layers. They leap off the page and don't simply fit into a box, and I think that Tim Foley is so brilliant at writing characters like this. I think that this also helps allowing the story flow more naturally. The scenes are a little bit longer in length, which allows us to explore emotions and the reason for certain beliefs, and there's lots of thought-provoking underlying themes too, which I shall not mention for the risk of spoiling the story's outcome. I love the way that the Doctor approaches this episode, this big moment in history. He knows what's going on, however everything isn't quite what it seems. So yes, I think Pursuit of the Nightjar is an excellent story. Tim Foley should be really, really proud of this one. I really, really enjoyed it. As I said, it's probably one of my favourite releases of this year, and it truly embraces a format. It feels very much of the era, but also it takes absolutely every single opportunity to utilise the audio drama form to its advantage. It's a really visual story, and yeah, I just really got along with it, and I think that the whole concept of the Nightjar as well is filled with hope and determination. And it's, even though it's an audio drama story, I can see the Nightjar as a spaceship within my mind. And yeah, I really, really loved it. So let's take a look at the second story, which is Resistor, as written by Sarah Grochella. This episode is a 2-parter, so it's quite a quick-fire story, seeing the Doctor and co arrive within a communist Polish regime in Warsaw 1982. It feels weird calling this story a historical, as it's essentially set within the very time that this TARDIS team was actually broadcast on TVs throughout the UK. So it wasn't particularly too long ago, but there is an element of distance there, certainly to the present day. Also, because of the world that we are living in within this story is very different to our own now. A band called Resistor is prepping for their gig, however their drummer, Howe, has been taken by the infamous Black Vulgar. One of the band members believe it's the SB behind it due to the band's protest songs, whilst Ivor is not so certain. The Doctor, Tegan and Nyssa arrive in what they believe is Yugoslavia, dropping Tegan off to see her grandmother, but in typical TARDIS style, they've landed in the wrong place and the wrong time, and they have a mystery to solve. It's clear that Sarah has a great understanding of this period. She's travelled to and from the UK and Warsaw throughout her life, meaning this story truly immerses the listener within the risk and communist tensions of the time. The mystery of the Black Vulgar, the cover-ups, potential alien sightings are all presented within this narrative, highlighting the fear within this society. It's a struggle for the everyday people, and it takes a lot to speak out. There are some lovely personal revelations too, which give this story a very human angle. There's also some very humorous moments, such as the Doctor and Co. almost being arrested by the police within this state, and I love the way that the Doctor pretends to be the Australian ambassador in order to get Tegan out of trouble, which is really funny, and again it shows almost the warmth within this dynamic, which we didn't really see as much of on TV. Although sadly I think this story doesn't have much time to breathe, unlike Pursuit of the Nightjar. Sarah has done a really good job of making this adventure her own. I love the concepts within this episode, but I came out of the other side wanting to explore said concepts further. So it's kind of a double-edged sword of compliment and criticism, because I love the concepts in this story so much that I do want to hear more of them, but sadly we don't have enough time to do so. As a result, I would have loved to see this story extended to being a 3-parter just to play with those ideas and concepts, but I definitely wouldn't want to sacrifice an episode of The Nightjar, taking that down to 3 parts, in order to fit this box set style. It's certainly one of the curses of the current box set format, and that loss of the additional 4th hour of content, which those of you who have been listening to Big Finish for quite a number of years will probably be quite familiar with, as having 4-hour box sets was very common in the likes of the Doom Coalition and Stranded series, and to be honest, the vast majority of series up until a few years ago. I think it's also why I kind of still love the War Master series so much, because that is one of the only series still going that does actually still have 4 episodes within it, and I think that additional 4th story more than often really does complete the set and make for a well-rounded package. Some of these smaller box sets end off almost a little bit too quickly. As the lovely cover art suggests, this story also features some aliens, the Mondri. They have infiltrated Warsaw society, but for what reasons? Again, I can't really say, as I don't want to ruin it, but I like the way that Sarah writes this species. Its approach to them is from a very non-human angle. It's more about the alien race looking in on humanity, rather than the humans looking outwards. So if anything, actually, it's a perfect reverse to Pursuit of the Nightjar. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing this TARDIS team together once more. I'm really coming to appreciate Tegan and Nyssa. It's a much warmer dynamic, I think, within the audio drama format. Nyssa and the Doctor do, however, have a tendency to spend a lot of time together as the problem solvers of the piece, with Tegan taking a more human approach. A story format that we've seen this series rely on quite a lot, so it would maybe be nice to see that switched up a little bit, maybe have Nyssa going off and doing her own thing, but I do think that this story style works well to tell stories in many different perspectives. So overall, for In the Night as a box set, to be honest, I really do enjoy both of these stories, and if you are a fan of the era, I highly recommend this one. I think it's probably one of the strongest Big Finish box sets of this year so far. Pursuit of the Nightjar in particular is a wonderful, magical, special story, and I will, without a doubt, be revisiting this one in the future. I think it may in fact become a bit of a comfort blanket story to put on and listen to and just enjoy in my own spare time, but I also think that the secondary story, Resistor, is really nice too, and again it very much takes human problems, adds a little bit of a Doctor Who twist in there, but again it's fun. It's a really fun immersive box set which takes you away from reality for a while, which I think is always nice. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular Doctor Who Big Finish content. Have a nice day. I shall see you all next time.